Podstock.
Hello, everybody. This is weird for me because of an audio issue. I can't hear myself, and I'm so used to hearing myself when I talk. It's throwing me off.
If you
Uh,
just do what I do, Alex, and move one headset
oh no,
back, you
no,
can
no!
even
But I need to hear myself through the headphones to know how loud I'm talking. Am I talking too loud? Am I talking too quiet as I go away from
no,
the
you
mic?
just stay in the microphone. Don't yell. You'll be fine. You've done this before.
I
You'll be
have
all
done
right.
this
Uh,
before. How are you
I've
guys
had
doing?
I've had cotton balls in since the beginning, since I first got you on there. That's how loud you are. So
Oh, okay, all right. I thought it was just because you're getting old and you stick things in your ears when you're old.
That's what I thought. He's been around too many airplanes.
well,
He's
I
got
did
a.
get a couple. Well, I did get a couple Q-tips stuck in my ear at one point in the past, but
Do you have a
hey,
disability for hearing as a result of your military service?
I do get that. What do they call that? Ringing in the ears. It's called
Do you have?
Tinnitus.
tonight. Yeah, tinnitus. Yes, I do
Is it
have
like
that.
10%? Maybe you don't want to disclose on the air, but you have a
Well,
number for that, right?
yeah, that and among a couple other things
Oh,
too.
okay.
But
So,
the only thing is they didn't approve me for my carpal tunnel side,
Right.
so I'm going to get myself tested for that, back out there and resubmit a dispute on that. So
so you
And,
took
and
the very opposite tack that I did.
what's that?
I didn't want to mess with any of it. I made no application. I didn't even try. I didn't do any testing. I just totally skipped. I was just done with it. And I said, you know what? I'm fine. I'll survive.
Well,
The
no,
end.
I only just applied for it because my carpal tunnel's gotten that bad and everything else is kind of cascade and everything. Because I
Mhm.
mean, I've been told to apply this thing for about 10, 15 years ago. I'm like, I'm fine. I don't
So
need
you
to
didn't do
use
it
the
when you
system.
separated then or when you retired.
No. I
Mm.
only just recently started doing it now.
So what about your
That's it.
multiple personality disorder, Dave? I mean, have you blamed that on your service as well?
Well, the only problem is that he's not talking to me right now. So
You
Oh,
don't
that's
know. You can't ever get a hold of him.
you got to leave notes for each other, sticky notes.
yes.
A different
Oh,
color for
wait a
each
second.
personality.
That's that's who keeps leaving the notes on my forehead.
I think it's that
Damn.
guy who writes bad grammar when you submit your columns, Dave. Not you. It's the other guy.
Oh no, that is me. The other guy is much better at grammar than me.
Oh, okay. We just
David.
can't get him.
David is the one
Yes.
with the good grammar. He goes by the full name. That's why he goes by the full name, so he's better at grammar. That's
Yeah,
his personality's one trait.
I mean,
There you go.
the VA, the way the VA operates, for those of you who don't know, they will take a myriad, all of your different conditions, and they assign a percentage to disability. And so, if you have enough of them, you'll add up to something that that matters in terms of taxes or something.
Hmm.
Um, and so, as a result of that, there's a lot of people who are perpetually fighting with the VA trying to get their numbers up, which is kind of
Hmm.
sad because that's not really the point. That's not really the intent. But you
Well,
do have
see,
people out running around out there who look totally fine who have 100% disability.
Sure.
and that's one thing that always bothered me because I work with a guy who gets just over 70%, and once you get over 50%, it's all tax free.
Right.
And so it's like, and yeah, I see him. And I used to see him. He's not where I'm at now anymore. But it's like, so what was the matter with you again? Exactly. Oh, I
Hmm.
got a little this in my ear, and my equilibrium's awful. I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
That's precisely why
never
I
mind.
didn't do it when
Yeah.
I retired.
Yeah. Meanwhile, those of us born with disabilities, we just live with it like normal human beings. That's how you go
Well, I
on with
mean,
life.
and there is a fair part of it because if the military
Sure.
caused you problems, they
Absolutely,
should
I get that.
compensate you. It's
Yeah.
but there's a group of people out there who try to game the system, and there's a bunch of attorneys who know how to file claims, and it's a whole cottage industry now.
Oh,
Right.
I know. I've run into plenty of those people in my government career, my former government career. Now I can say that I'm no longer any way, shape, or form working with the U.S. government, which is weird, by the way. But by the way, for those who complain, government workers work way harder than the people I've dealt with so far in the private sector. I'm just going to put that out there.
I
Day
worked way
one.
harder in a major law firm than I did when I was in the public sector.
Uh,
Way
okay.
harder.
For me, it's been the opposite so far.
Opposite.
Yeah, so far, but it's only
Of course,
been
you're on day one, are you not on day
that's
one?
true. Well, day one in the office, day 3 altogether. So I'm not gonna.
I don't think
know.
yeah, you don't have a representative sample just yet in 8 hours, okay?
That's fair. That's fair. And 7.5 something. It's
Sitting
a
in a
weird.
boring HR
Yeah,
intro thing.
yeah. The boring HR stuff is awful. I've also been in more HR meetings today in the last 3 days than I was in the last 12 years. So
I don't think the federal government probably cares a whole heck of a lot about HR stuff, would be my guess.
no, and government contractors care even less.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, "Are you showing up?" No, we don't care. We're just gonna
Well,
bill
yeah,
everything.
and so in the past several years, it's been you don't have to show up either.
Yeah,
We'll still
well,
pay you, but
I did, but
you had to, yeah.
yeah, other people, yes.
How many
Well,
times were we the only one in the building other than you and the janitors?
sometimes it was just me and no janitors. To be fair, during the worst of the pandemic, it was me and one security guard, and that was it, and that was wild. I was literally running laps on floors just for fun.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah, no one's in the secretary's office to stop me. I could go in there, lick everything. Who cares?
I don't know if I would admit that on the air.
I didn't actually lick anything. I'm not a child.
Yes, you are.
Well, I am. I'm a 41-year-old man child. We all know it. Speaking of man children, let's talk about the football team, because what are football players other than just guys playing a child's game for
Oh, they're man
fun
children for
and
sure.
making millions of dollars? And we love them. We love that they're man children who get to do this, and we're jealous, right? We all wish we could make $100 million.
I've
playing
told you
football.
guys repeatedly that I was drafted. I turned it down to pursue a career in the military and a career in law. I mean, everybody
Right.
knows this.
Right. We all know they really, really, really wanted you as that fifth cornerback on
Yes.
that team. Yes.
Yeah.
The
I didn't
expansion
know,
team in 19 something.
I didn't know that. I didn't know the Arena League was around that time. And
Oh
even
no,
held
no, it
drafts.
wasn't the Arena League. It's NFL. Everybody hopefully believes this.
Everyone needed a 5'8" fifth string corner with bad knees already somehow.
What are you talking about? I'm 6'2", okay? Alex is 4'8", which is why I make fun of him.
No,
and
Dave's
I'm 6'2".
4'8".
Sorry, Dave is 4'8". I'm getting both of you mixed up. And I'm 6'2".
Sure. Right.
Listen, I got timed at a 4.1540, or 4.51. Sorry, not 4.1. I'm not Daryl Green.
No.
Almost, not quite.
Did you ever actually do a 40 when you were playing, like in high school?
In all seriousness, yeah. I mean, I wasn't fast. I mean, I
No.
was below 5, but not much.
Sure.
I don't really remember the number. I just remember it was like I was happy I was not in the 5 zone.
I think we all forget to appreciate how hard it is to just even get under 5, like as normal humans. Like,
Well,
we're
yeah.
so
I
used to
mean,
seeing.
some of us weren't, elite athletes. We were just there to kind of have fun and build a high school resume.
Sure. Exactly. I'm sure at this point any of us would be happy to get under 6 at this point.
I'd be happy to get under 10 at this point. You kidding me?
Well,
Finish.
Dave, I mean, I assume you played in the midget league, right?
Pee Wee was called.
Pee Wee. Okay. Oh,
Pee-wee,
sorry.
yes.
I didn't mean to
Pee Wee
offend out there.
Their 40 was 40 feet, not 40 yards.
Well, no. We had the midgets and the Pee Wees.
Oh,
I was a class up from that into the.
Oh, you
Pee-wees.
were, because 4'10" is fairly tall in that universe.
Yes. It was kind of unfair for the midget league, so they had to move me up.
Right. And then up above that is the Hobbit League, of course.
Did you just dominate those little people?
I tell you what, man, I felt like Jerry Rice out there as a receiver.
I think you probably should have been a left tackle, at that level.
I've always thought they should do that with basketball. We should have like a 5 foot and under professional basketball league just for fun.
And then the Spud Webb League. Yeah.
Just let's go with it. Let's make it weird, guys. Like, your center is literally 5 feet. Everyone else is, under.
Who was I in an elevator with the other day? I was in an elevator with a Hall of Fame
You've told us
NBA
that.
forward. Yeah, I can't remember who it is.
Yeah.
A Houston Rocket center, and the dude, I mean,
it was one of the older ones who.
Yeah. He was walking with a cane, but he was still enormous.
Yeah. I remember you telling. I think you told us on the air
I'm
about
gonna
it.
have to look it up.
Yeah. All right. So if you can't tell by us just jibber jabbering, there's not a lot
Elvin
going on right
Hayes.
now.
That's who it was.
Yeah,
Who's
Hayes.
it?
Yeah, it was Elvin Hayes.
Yeah. Not a lot going on with the team, with the NFL as a whole. Honestly, this is kind of like the dead part before the draft because we got exactly a month till the draft now. We're at the 4-week mark, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, normally it's Washington
Like
like
tomorrow.
mired in a bunch of weird controversies, and because they have competent ownership now,
Right,
it's no
right.
fun anymore.
No one's thrown peanut butter on a dwarf or anything
Hired a bunch of
weird.
prostitutes at a party in
Right.
Colorado or whatever.
I
it
was gonna go nice and just have like
Don't go
weird
nice.
things that Daniel Snyder had done.
People
Allegedly.
who are listening to this for the first time think I'm joking. I'm not joking. That was part
No.
of what he got busted for.
Yes, that is. But I was gonna like he stole a bunch of donkeys and transported them across state lines illegally because
That's 100% true as well.
Yeah, he absolutely did that. People don't remember that.
Did you say throw
Okay.
peanut butter at people? I'm sure he did that at some
Throw
point.
peanut butter at a dwarf.
I'm
was
sure
only
that
ma-
happened.
I can only imagine what he's doing with a half gallon of ice cream on his yacht right now.
This is the man who did leave a gallon of ice cream outside of a coach's door
Yes,
one time
yes.
as a
Yes,
statement.
he did.
vanilla. Remember, because it was Mike Nolan, if I
Yep.
remember correctly.
Hi, Dan.
Yeah.
We hope you're listening.
Yeah. I hope you're not. I hope you don't have audio capabilities on your yacht somehow.
Oh, I
Because-
think you know what? In all honesty, I think the guy is obsessing over Washington. That's what I think.
He absolutely is. There was that story that came out. Remember, like just before or was it just before or after the
We
championship
talked about
game?
it on the show. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember when it came out, but I think it was before the championship game. How pissed he got about how much success they were having, because he was like, if I had drafted Jaden Daniels, which I would have, it would have been the same, and it wouldn't have. They would have failed
No,
miserably.
God. No,
Jaden
because
Daniels would have been
he would have
traded.
mortgaged everything to move up one spot to take Caleb Williams anyway. Because
Yes,
he
he
was
would have.
because he was from Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah, he 100% would have done that. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
yeah,
Of course, you could really play it out, and Dan Quinn wouldn't be the coach either.
right.
It would have been some, God knows who.
Oh, that's a
Brian
fun.
Like a Brian Schottenheimer type of move
Somebody,
that Cowboys
yeah.
made.
Brian Schottenheimer wouldn't come here because Dan treated his dad so poorly.
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
So even Brian Schottenheimer's out. You have to really think about it and dig deep and find.
I don't even want to do it. I'm just saying the whole history would be different. That's all. It would be more entertaining for a podcast.
Right.
It would not be good. For the team.
Absolutely. I'll give you my name. It's going to be Greg Williams. That's who he would have apologized and begged Greg to come back.
Dan Snyder has never apologized to anybody in his entire life.
That's true. Dang it. What about Jim Fossil? He's dead, so he's out.
I mean, he might be on the list if he runs out of names.
Yeah, it would have been the coach of Bullis High School, his son's high school coach. That's who he would have had to go with.
Could have been.
All right, let's talk about the Michael Gallup signing, because this is really the only thing Washington's done in the past week.
This is the big news, kiddos.
This is the big story. They added Michael Gallup, the former Cowboys receiver. Used to be at one point a really good receiver, right? Like Michael Gallup was kind of viewed by the Cowboys as he was going to be their future number one.
Yeah, I mean, he's a name now more than anything. First of all, he's 6'1",
right?
198 for those who are wondering. But I mean, he never made a Pro Bowl, anything like that.
No.
His high water mark was 2019 with Dallas. These were all with Dallas. 66 receptions, 1,100 yards. It dwindled dramatically after that. In 2020, at 840 yards, and then the next following 3 years, in the 400s, 30-something catches in the 400s, which is mediocre, third-rate starter. But he was a name because of that 1 year, I'd say.
I would agree with that. And what's interesting to me about that, when you talk about that year, that 2019, I feel like Michael Gallup started showing something, and they're like, all right, he's going to be our new guy. And Dallas kind of blew up their receiver roster, if I remember correctly, right? They started getting rid of a lot of their older talent to be like, we're going to make him the centerpiece, and it fell apart.
Well, I think what happened was, I believe after that year is when they drafted CeeDee Lamb, and then CeeDee Lamb just took over that number one spot.
Right.
And he just started dropping off ever since after that.
and they got rid of Cooper not long after.
Mhm.
You know, so which I thought Amari Cooper was there a lot longer than he was. He really wasn't there that
No,
long,
it was
he?
only a few years.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot that he was not drafted by the Cowboys.
I mean, in the case
Right.
of Dallas, I mean, they have 35 million in cap space still, and so
Do
it
they
wasn't.
really? I didn't
Yes,
realize
it's
that.
not a
Wow.
money thing. It's a we don't need Michael Gallup thing. And I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea here. I mean, Michael Gallup is not a guarantee on this Washington team at all.
No.
He's a backup. He's going to have to fight with these other guys, and they're going to add players. I mean, right
Mhm.
now they only have 8 receivers on the roster, which sounds
And
like a lot, but I mean they're going to have 4 or 5 more coming out of
Right.
draft and free agency.
and let's be honest, of those 8, only 4 are probably legitimate NFL caliber guys anyway.
Well, and we're going to, by the way, I mean, in the future, we're going to start up our position group breakdowns again.
Right.
That'll be in May after the draft.
Right.
And so we'll save receiver side. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the players, Noah Brown, Lawrence Kager, Michael Gallup, Luke McCaffrey, Terry McLaurin,
Mhm.
Chris Moore, KJ Osborne, Debo Samuel. So obviously McLaurin, Samuel, and McCaffrey all are locks. McCaffrey
Right.
mainly because he was a high draft pick last
Right.
year. Noah Brown, I would assume, has probably got the inside track on the 4th one, but the rest of these guys are
Right.
competing.
Right. The interesting thing to me about that group is these veterans are all kind of that same age, right? They're all in that like late 20s, early like they have McCaffrey, who's a young guy. They just drafted him. There's none in like that mid 20 range right now on the roster.
Well, because I'm
Which
such a nerd with this, I have all
Mhm.
their ages here.
Yeah.
And so the youngest guy was born in 97. Oh, and that is, if I go over here, that's Lawrence Kager, born in 97. So that is, what is that? That's 28.
Well, that's the oldest guy.
Sorry,
Or
that's the youngest guy. Sorry. And then the oldest guy is
I mean,
Moore. Chris Moore is the oldest, born in
Mhm.
93. So 32 for him. So
Yeah.
there, so between 28. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. The
Wait,
youngest
yeah.
guy is that's
Luke
I'm wrong.
McCaffrey's younger than that. I
Yeah,
was
Luke
gonna say.
McCaffrey was born in 2001. Sorry, I overlooked
Yeah.
him.
I was gonna say.
But
Wait.
outside of McCaffrey, it would be.
Yeah, I'm
Kager.
thinking, well, what was I was like, what was he in college for like 8 years or something?
No, that's
McCaffrey?
just my stupidity. No.
Luke McCaffrey repeated every grade. Every
I
grade.
do
once.
think I can't believe I saw a headline today about some player in the draft who's 27.
Oh, really?
I don't know
well,
who that is.
it's probably some Mormon dude from Utah because they do that.
Yeah, I don't know.
That
On a
happens
mission or
every few years. You get some Mormon dude. He was on a mission, and then he goes and plays college football
Yeah,
after his
but
mission.
missions are usually 2 years, so it's still
True.
that's still a
Maybe he
number
was
of
held
years.
back a year too. You throw that
Well,
in.
a lot of these guys now, because of NIL, are moving around and extending their
True.
college
True.
tenure and everything. And it doesn't matter. But point is, what I was trying to say very poorly is that other than Luke McCaffrey, the age of these guys
It's up
is
there.
about 28 to 32. That's
Yeah.
what I'm trying
Right.
to say.
Yeah. I mean, when I think about that, they probably are gonna have to add a couple receivers in this draft at some point, because you need to build some kind of young core that Jaden Daniels can grow with long term, and maybe only 2 work out, but if you add 2 more this year and you have Luke McCaffrey, and that's kind of how you're gonna have to start thinking that way too.
Well, if you give me a second here, because I don't know if you guys know just how nerdy I am with this roster stuff.
You hide some of it.
Yeah, but I actually have them all from all the way back to when I started doing this too.
Right.
Believe it or not. So let's look at the roster here. Let's go back to May 27th of last year.
Yeah.
I'm going to
And-
update it. Okay. So let's see. So this would be post-draft last year.
Mm-hmm.
And they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They had 13 receivers on the roster after the draft and after undrafted free agents.
Right. So this is going into training camp and all.
Yes.
You have
So
a
expect
90
5
people or whatever.
Expect 4 or 5 more at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Michael Gallup, I mean, there's not much to say about him.
No, look, I don't think there's a lot. It's a no risk signing, right? Like if he doesn't work out, he doesn't work out. But maybe he's your 4th guy. That's fine. I have no issue if a one-time 1,000-yard receiver who's still's been productive most of his career. He's got good fourth guy numbers.
I have not. I've been really busy this week, and I have not updated the salary cap
Right.
since the weekend at least. I did update over the weekend, but didn't have Gallup in there. I'll check it for him right now, but right now Washington's at about 17 million under the rule of 51, and so you subtract another 3.5 or so for draft picks, and they're at a little under 13. Let's call it 12.5, say. And so if they want to, have like a pad of 8 to 10 million, you're looking at they've got another 3 or 4 million to spend.
Yeah, I assume that they're kind of waiting until they see what they get in the draft to round out the roster at this point. You might get a Michael Gallup or a guy once or twice a week, just depth guys at this point. But until we know, hey, maybe you drafted an end at number 1. I don't know what position, but then they'll figure it out. Oh, Steve, you're muted.
Sorry, muted. Because I haven't updated my chart in a while, I haven't plugged this in. But Gallup signed a 1-year, $1.25 million contract, 200,000 guaranteed.
Right. So that's easy to plug in, like
Yeah,
a 1-year deal.
Yeah, at the end, I mean, most of that comes out in the rule of 51, so it only adds, a couple 100,000 at most to the salary cap.
Right. Right, because you're knocking off somebody who's
And we're
probably,
up to about 1 million or so,
yeah,
and knocking people off, so it's not that much.
yeah. What is the vet minimum? Is that basically vet minimum now? 1.2 or so?
Well, so there's provisions in the CBA that actually reduce the cap hit for some of these veterans. So they may have like a $1.25 million contract. Here's a perfect example. So Gallup has a 1-year, $1.25 million contract. His base with 200,000 guaranteed. His base is 1.17 million, but his cap hit is only 1.1 million. Okay, and so the reason for that is, I mean, it's a lot of time it's really confusing, but bonuses that are classified as easily attainable count against the salary cap, and bonuses that are not. Okay,
Right.
and so, but he actually counts for less than his base because he's a veteran.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well,
So
it's
he
a
probably has
CBA
some
thing. What it
bonus
is
in
a
there,
way
yeah.
to encourage teams to sign more veteran players. That's what
Right.
it is.
Which is what they should do.
Yes,
That's the whole
absolutely.
point of the CBA. They want to encourage that. All right.
See, because
Well,
his workout bonus is 30,000, so normally you would say, his base would be at least 1.2 million, but it's not.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if he. I assume he's at least on the inside track to make the final roster, just because he is a kind of proven veteran. He knows the head coach pretty well. That kind of stuff helps.
I think he's a name more than anything.
Yeah, maybe so. But if that's your fourth or fifth receiver, like I said before, I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, but if they draft somebody, that'll kick him to the curb.
Sure.
And unfortunately, this draft isn't as deep in starting quality receivers as in past years. So they don't get someone early. They're going to want to just getting a guy who's just probably going to wind up being a practice squad guy anyway, down the road most likely.
And what are the odds that they're going to draft a receiver anyway? They've spent a lot of money on their position group this year already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a high draft pick, that's for sure. I've started because I'm doing the draft preview for receivers. Spoiler alert for our listeners. I apologize in advance. There's 1,000 receivers in this draft, and most of them are very average.
Please watch all the film on all of them.
I'm gonna do my best, but my new job, I'm more restricted as to what I can get away with watching.
Well, that's a shame. Violate the rules. What is more important?
Right.
Come on.
Exactly.
So, right now, Washington has 15.8% of the salary cap dedicated to receivers alone, and that's minus without Gallup and without one more. The only one that's bigger is the defensive line group at 17. So, they have a lot of money dedicated to the position.
Even post John Allen, the D line group's
Yes.
bigger. Wow.
Yes.
Oh yeah, because
I
of
guess yeah.
Kinlaw.
Right.
If
They
you
gave him
put
a
the
pretty
line,
heavy
if you
contract.
took the offensive line together, they're at 20%. I separate them on my chart between interior and tackles. But
Gotcha.
together, the offensive line be 20. Of course, that's a position group with 5 starters too. So
Yeah.
True. And D line's 4 receivers. I mean, you have to
well,
have
3. I would say it's a 3 starter position group realistically.
in the D line.
No, receiver. I thought you said receiver.
Oh no, receiver. I was saying D line's 4 receiver.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right, 3. But you have to have at least 6 decent usable receivers at some
Yeah.
level.
All my point is
Yeah.
they have a lot of money in receivers already. That's my point.
Right.
And are they really going to spend like a first or second round draft pick on the receiver group when
Probably
they
not.
already signed or traded for Deebo Samuel? Probably not.
Right.
I mean, a 7th round, sure. Like
I mean,
you
unless
see flyers,
Calvin
like,
Johnson fell into their lap or something, But what are the odds?
Oh yeah. Well, it's kind of like I said with the tight ends, right? Like there's one amazing tight end. If he falls to you, you blow up your draft board and you take him. There might be 2 receivers like that in this draft, but I don't think it's likely that any of those guys are still there at 29.
Right.
With that in mind, let's talk about a position that they do need to upgrade because also we have very little to talk about. So let's just go to our draft preview.
Don't run people off, Alex.
But Dave covered an interesting group because, like I said, I think offensively at this point, running back, it might be the biggest need they still have on this offensive group because, they've kind of filled out the receiver group, the tight end group. They've done some work on the O-line. You could always do more on the O-line in my mind, but that's just me. But running back, they haven't touched in the free agent class. So with that, Dave, you started looking at running backs. Take it away.
Well, yeah, this and don't be deceived by Washington's I think they were ranked 5th last year for average yard per carry at 5 point that's just 5 yards a carry. And that came because of the slightly over 6 yards per carry average, I think it was, or close. I can't remember exactly what Jaden Daniels had. Either way, he skewed that number by a lot.
Yeah.
And
he was your running game for
actually,
many
it
times.
it was 6 yards per carry average for him on 148 carries.
Right.
So, but the second best running back after that was, of course, Brian Robinson Jr. at 4.3 yards per carry. Now, I mean, Rodriguez was closer to 5, but he didn't have nearly as many carries.
Right.
No, he didn't play much, and Robinson was a primary guy. So, yeah, there's no doubt that this draft, they've got to get one of these guys out there. The top 2 guys on the board are probably going to be top 15 picks. And Ashton Jeanty, Boise State, 5'9", 215 pounds, 4'4", 240. And you have Omarion Hampton, North Carolina, 6 foot, 220 pounds, 4'4", 640. Mm-hmm. These guys are definitely the best 2 running backs in this draft. Omarion Hampton, he's a guy that could potentially slide near 20. And he is a guy that if he gets near 20, you almost do what you can to move up and get him because he's like Marshawn Lynch with better hands. Everything that I've read about him. I mean, he is a guy that will run you over. He's excellent in space. He has really, really good contact balance off the ball. Now he can't in pass protection. He's not great at pass protection. He needs to work with his hands and everything, but Omarion Hampton is a guy that I would absolutely love to see this offense get.
Is he as much of a mental train wreck as Marshawn Lynch, though?
No, not even close.
From everything we don't know. I mean, he could get some concussions, and then who knows?
Yeah, who knows, right? So, but realistically, most likely they're not gonna be positioned to get him nor Ashton Jeanty. I mean, obviously he's the best running back in the draft. He's like that 5-tool player in baseball. What is the only knock on him is that the competition he played against. He didn't play like against your SEC teams, your Big Ten defenses and so forth. So, but I mean, the guy has got great. He's compact in size, but outstanding speed, fantastic in space. He hasn't been utilized as a passing threat that much from Boise State, but every time he's had that opportunity in space, I mean, he's nearly impossibly brought down by the first tackler there. So, but those two guys I think are kind of out of reach for us. The guy that I would love to see them take, he could sneak into the back end of the first round, but he's projected more of an early second round pick is Travion Henderson from Ohio State University.
That's the name I
5'10".
keep hearing. That's maybe a
Yes.
Washington possibility.
Yes. And he runs a 4.43 40. His strengths are he might be the best home run threat in this class. He's very, very explosive. And his first step into acceleration is probably second to nobody in this draft. He's a very, very, very natural pass receiver, soft hands, and he understands the routes in the most part very, very well. Now his biggest knocks in 2022 and 2023, he did miss significant time due to injury, but he did play all year last year, so at least that's a positive right there. Now his style of play though, because he can be a little bit impatient at times because he's looking for that big run, that big home run threat. He can tend to have negative plays at times too as well. But for what he can add in terms for what he could do to make this offense more dynamic with Jaden Daniels back there, he can kind of be that Jamar Gibbs to our offense. You know, with Brian Robinson Jr. kind of playing like the David Montgomery light role because he's not David Montgomery either. I think that's a really good balance between
What's a projected draft position for him?
Early second round pick. Now some projections have him sneaking in the back end of the first round.
So that would be perfect at 29 if Washington chose to do that. Not
Yeah.
perfect, but maybe at least a possibility.
Right. Now I have seen some reports that he's starting to kind of creep up on some people's boards because of what he adds in the passing game. And he's also a good pass protector. He does a good job of recognizing blitzes, and he knows and he doesn't get real too handsy, in his hand technique and blocking. So he's kind of like your three. He's almost a prototypical 3-down back, but you're not really sure you can rely on him to be just that because of his injury history either.
I mean, to me, that's the guy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you're telling me he could be a good home run threat, just imagine your RPO how much it opens up if Jane Daniels has somebody next to him who they actually have to worry about. You know,
They just need someone who's a good every down back. I mean,
oh, absolutely.
Brian Robinson has had 400-yard games in his career in 3 years. And, if it wasn't for those games, he'd be below a 4-yard, 4.0 yards per attempt for his career.
I don't have it in front of me, but last year I think Jane Daniels led the team in rushing in like 7-8 games or something like that. About half the game.
Daniels had 891 yards rushing, 6.0 yards per attempt. Now, technically, it didn't lead the team. Technically, De'Ami Brown had 3 attempts for 26 yards, but I'm not counting that. Olamide Zaccheaus had 1 for 8. That doesn't count. So of the players who had actual carries, listen to this. This is how bad this position group is. Jane Daniels, number 1, yards per attempt, followed by Marcus Mariota, Chris Rodriguez, Austin Eckler, Jeremy McNichols, then Brian Robinson.
And that's Brian Robinson order. Was the lead back.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
And how many carries did Robinson have again?
187.
I mean,
which is the most on the team.
Right. It's the most on the team, but it's also that's not a crazy workload for Brian.
No, it's not.
Anything under 200. I mean, it's a solid workload, but it's not, it's not like he was doing what Adrian Peterson or guys used to do back in the old days. Let's see if we lost you again.
Keep muting here. But no, I mean, Derrick Henry, he had, 300 carries a game, multiple years.
Right. Yeah, they obviously need somebody, and they need somebody with home run ability, big play ability. I don't mind Robinson. I feel like sometimes we feel like we're piling on Brian Robinson. He is what he is. He is a power back. You use him to kind of soften things up. He's not going to put up big numbers, but that's just the kind of running back he is.
We're not power. We're not. What's the word you use? You're not piling on him. He's the starter.
Right.
He's not good enough.
He's being
I don't know what
realistic.
to tell him. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
being
Being
realistic.
honest, right?
Right.
And
And
see, the one thing too is that if you get a Henderson, and maybe he can't be that featured guy because of his past injuries, at least when you have Brian Robinson on the field, you
Mhm.
can still use that threat of Debo Samuels lining him offset of him in the backfield, and you're
Right.
still forcing defenses to worry about the run, read options, stuff like that with Debo Samuels in there. You bring Henderson in, you keep Debo Samuels to the outside. Then you got options where you have like a double reverses, and
Mhm.
there's so many options right there. When you have a Trevion Henderson, but if you don't get a guy like that, for as good as our offense was last year, we're still going to be. I don't want to say one dimensional because of what Jaden Daniels offers and what he brings to the game, but we don't have anything in that running game to help to keep that
Right.
to keep the defenses honest up front.
I just
It's
want to
a.
give some perspective here.
Mhm.
Derrick Henry, who's obviously a Hall of Fame level running back,
Right.
to be clear, he's
Right.
had 3 seasons above 300 carries, and 3 other seasons. Sorry, 4 seasons above 300 carries and 3 more above 200. His lowest number of carries is as a rookie, 110, and his
Right.
second year, 176. That's a workload for a starter.
Right.
And he's
Right.
averaging 4.9 yards per attempt.
If you were a true featured running back, and look, most running backs are not.
Correct.
Yeah. And I think the way we're talking about Henderson here, we're not saying he would be necessarily a feature back who does that. He would be somebody you split time with somebody else as a Thunder and Lightning or whatever your second guy does, right?
I mean, there's not a lot of teams that have a sole featured back anymore.
No,
No.
and even in the prime era of the running back, only maybe half the teams found that guy. Like that was still a rare thing,
The John Riggins of the world,
right?
who, by the way, wouldn't be in the league today at run. He was at like 3.8 yards per carry. Different
Right.
league.
Right.
Right.
Those are few and far between.
Exactly. But my point I was making was even when John Riggins was playing, there were a lot of teams that still had to do running back by committee. We just forget about that. I
Yeah,
feel
absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
Washington did it for a while, even though,
Yeah.
with Ernest Biner and, whoever,
Right.
I forget who else it was.
Gerald Riggs.
Gerald
Yeah.
Riggs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those guys. Yeah. There was one more guy in the older guy who was like the grizzled veteran. I can't remember his name now.
Didn't we have Ernest Biner on this show?
We had Ernest Biner on the show. I
Yeah.
still have his cell phone number somewhere.
What you want for all the
No.
world? I don't either.
I don't know if it's if it's his current number, but we used to have his cell phone number.
Yeah,
somewhere.
if anybody wants to steal either Alex or my cell phone, there's a
Right.
bunch of like pretty cool players in these. Between the two of us, we've got a lot of people.
Yeah, we do. It's kind of fun, honestly. Yeah. So why don't we go on? I'm sure there's other running backs we should discuss here.
Next on the list is another Ohio State running back. He's more of a he's more of a between attacker, traditional bruiser running back in Quinshawn Junkins. He has excellent contact balance, runs very, very patiently and great vision behind the offensive line. He excels especially in short yardage situations. And has great ball and he has great ball security. The thing he struggles the most with though is in pass protection. He's not really that great an elusive runner in space. Doesn't have fantastic lateral movement. So he is basically, if you want to find a replacement for Brian Robinson Jr., this would be the guy for that. If you want to replace him, I think he would give you much more than what Brian Robinson would between the tackles, and he has a better first step out, hitting the hole, better vision, which would I think Brian Robinson lacks. Next on the list would be Caleb Johnson from Ohio, and he is. I got his height wrong. I think he was. I listed down as 5 foot. I think he's actually 5
He's
foot
thinking of
9.
himself. His goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe he's actually 5'9",
Sure.
225 pounds, 4'4", 8 40. In most draft boards, they actually have Junkins going over Caleb Johnson, which is why I have the order in the article like that. But I actually think he's a better runner in terms of in space. He's got better vision. He's got a really great first step, excellent lateral movement. Now he doesn't possess the top end speed. He's not going to outrun anybody. He can definitely get into the secondary hard to bring down. And now he will be a liability in the passing game, especially as a pass protector. But a guy in between the tackles, a bruiser, hard to bring down, almost Omarion Hampton light in that terms. How I describe Omarion Hampton, he's probably a tier behind that in terms of his power, hard to bring down, great stiff arm. Now, here's an interesting name because he's kind of all over the place in the draft boards. The biggest thing about Cameron Scadaboo out of Arizona State is 5'11", 215 pounds at 4'6", 240. His 40 times not great. He's got excellent size. He's very compact. He's a strong runner. Finishes runs very well. But the thing about him is that he is a very good natural receiver. He's got that real deceptive, elusive speed in open space, but he's not going to outrun anybody. He's a very patient runner. Now, granted, he doesn't have the great top end speed, but the biggest problem, the two things about him though, is that his ball security is poor. He's got 10 fumbles in the last 3 seasons, and his workload, he's got 521 carries over the last 2 years. So he's definitely has a very, very heavy workload on him. But this is probably one of the most interesting names in this draft because I think teams are really split on this guy, on where he should be. He's a guy that you can, I mean, especially in the red zone, and in the red zone, he has a knack for the end zone. But I'm sure you guys have something on Scadaboo though, because everyone seems to have something on him.
I think that he became a favorite of a lot of pundits and fans just because one, it's a white dude who's a good running back, and people still get fascinated by the rare good running back who's a white guy.
I would hope that's not an issue.
I don't think it's an issue. I think that people just get, because everyone's like, it's Mike Allstott, and it's like, this is nothing like Mike Allstott. This dude is, I mean, other than the fact that he's like, a physical runner, he's like 60 pounds lighter than Mike Allstott.
I mean, he has captured the imagination of some Washington fans for sure.
He definitely has. Maybe more for Riggins reasons if you're going white running backs, but
it's a terrible, characteristic to characterize.
It absolutely is, but it's there, and people, they don't want to admit it, but that's why.
Kind of harkens back to the, only white people can be quarterback days, and nobody wants that.
Right. But
they want if they're wearing a white hood, and we don't want them.
we definitely do not want them back.
When it comes to Scadaboo, because he's projected to be a early to mid 3rd round pick, if they don't get like a Henderson and they don't get the guy that they really kind of covet at their running back spot, I could see some maneuverability, maybe move back in the picks a little bit, take more assets on, and this guy could be on their board as a guy that could be ultimately a replacement for Brian Robinson Jr. because at least he gives more in the passing game. He's got better vision. He's more of a patient runner. He's everything you kind of wish Brian Robinson Jr. would have been over the last couple of years, but just wasn't.
We're talking a lot about replacing Robinson Jr., but we have to remember Austin Eckler is in his 30s. He is not for long in this league, as that's just the nature of the position.
He's also not an every down back.
Right. But if you're talking about a receiving back, a good receiving back, that's another person you can replace, right?
I mean, the truth is, all of these guys actually have 1 year on their contract. There is no running back who's signed beyond 2025.
Right. I think it's clear that Adam Peters is going to probably draft a running back in this class somewhere.
Right.
And just because I don't see them as big spenders at the position. They're going to probably approach this through the draft long term. You draft guys, let them play their contract, let them go, right? Like that's an approach that plenty of teams use now.
Yeah.
And it's cruel. But from a business perspective, it is what it is.
Okay. Well, this name would be interesting in the mid rounds next, which would be Dylan Sampson at Tennessee, 5'11", 201 pounds. Was a 4.3, 540. Probably the second best running back in space in this draft. He's got great burst. He's got outstanding lateral movement. He's not a feature runner. He's kind of like a number 3 guy on your roster, guys that come down and passing down situations, maybe play a little bit of a slot. So, I mean, the only thing is he's had 4 fumbles last year. But he is limited in his time as a receiver for Tennessee. But every time he's had the opportunity, he's excelled pretty well at that position. So now comes in my tier 3 group.
All right, let's just run through these names real quick. Yeah.
All right, here we go. So we got Devin Neal, Kansas at Kansas, 5'11", 215, 4.58, 40. He's got good initial burst, great fluid runner, and good contact balance and a patient runner. Weaknesses: he does run a bit upright, and he's not a naturally good hand catcher. Yeah, I struggled through that one. DJ Giddens at Kansas State, 6'1", 212, 4.43, 40. Great lateral movement, good contact balance, very patient runner. And he's a good receiver in the passing game. Weakness does not anchor well in the pass protection, so he will be a liability from everything I read on pass blocking. So that's going to be a big issue with him, especially in protection for Jaden Daniels, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Another guy to look for or look at in this draft for later rounds, who could be a good developmental player into something, is Bishol Tuten at Virginia Tech. 5'11", 209 pounds, 4.32, 240. He's one of the top backs in the pass. He's probably one of the best pass catching running backs in this draft. Great in space, great contact balance, but he does lack some decisiveness. So he will get caught with negative losses. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't have great lateral movement left to right. So he's more of a early to mid 5th round pick, but could be a guy that could be a deep roster stash you could develop into something.
He's also the fastest guy in this draft in terms of running backs.
Yeah, 4.32, 240. Yes.
Yeah.
He's got extra straight line speed. Second out of Oklahoma State, 6'2", 215, 4.61, 140. I mean, he's just your typical between tackle, bruise, and runner. Not great in the passing game, although he is a good pass blocker. It's not bad. But he is very indecisive in his run, so he will get a lot of negative yards. But he's a between the tackles guy, short yardage guy. R.J. Harvey Jr. out of University of Central Florida, 5'9", 208, 440 time. Great vision, explosive runner. Maintains excellent contact balance, and he's got one of the better ball securities in the draft. He rarely ever puts the ball in the ground. But he is undersized at 5'9", at 208, and he does not have ideal power when he's running through would-be tacklers. So he's about a mid-5th round pick. Yep. I got one more left.
Okay.
Trevor Etienne from Georgia. He is 20 years old. He's got the most upside probably in his class, but he's very raw. He needs to refine his pass blocking and his route tree. Great speed at 4.42, 240. But he's fantastic in the open field. So he's a guy that you could definitely find somewhere down the back end of the roster, even a practice squad, maybe even on special teams or something like that.
And his brother's had some success in the league, so that'll play into some of his. All right, so
I think one of those needs to be on the Washington team.
At least one.
Yep.
At least one, maybe 2. They need to start building that running back room. All right, some other things we wanted to hit before the end of the show, because we actually somehow filled a good couple minutes, guys. The Giants don't seem to be drafting a quarterback. We should talk about that because they signed Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. That is an interesting quarterback room of personalities. I'll put it
I
that
don't
way.
understand that. I
They
mean,
don't like
good-
this QB class. I get it. I get that part at least.
I get that part, but I mean, Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston both have strange personalities.
Yes. And they also were interviewing Aaron Rodgers, and we were talking about that before the show. That's
I have
that
news
is
for Aaron.
yeah.
Can we say it? Aaron, you're washed up.
Retire.
It's over. Retire. Yes. Don't
Yeah.
embarrass yourself anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
Go smoke ayahuasca. Or, would you smoke ayahuasca?
No,
Alex?
you
What do
drink
think?
ayahuasca.
Okay. Shows you what I know.
well, it's
Yeah.
funny because he wants to find a team with a culture like the Packers when he was on the Packers. But the only problem is that he's a culture killer. He's a cancer to locker rooms.
Mhm.
He's literally the one that killed the culture of the Packers.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. I can't remember what we said before the show. I don't know if this is a worse toxic idea for Aaron Rodgers to go to the Giants, or if that's worse for the Giants to bring on Aaron Rodgers.
You had a really great quote. I can't remember
Yeah,
what
I
it was.
don't remember what. Well, no, it was a one-liner that you set up, and I don't remember. But it's basically.
Oh,
you
I know
said-
what it was. I
Yeah.
mentioned that I was going to go see AC/DC
Right.
in a month, and
Right.
you had we. It
We
was
were
something.
joking about how many are left and all that, but yeah.
It was had something to do with this. Just
Yeah.
just insert joke here, people. So
Yeah,
look,
insert funny thing.
I will say this.
Da-da-da-da-da.
I will say this about Russell Wilson. I think he's better than people might expect. He actually didn't do too badly last year in the 11. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl. I'm not saying he's going to turn the Giants around. Don't misunderstand me. But he did have a quarterback rating of almost 96. You know, he had a completion percentage of almost 64, which isn't great, but isn't
Mhm.
terrible. Only 5 interceptions in 11 games. Year before that in Denver, played 15 games. He had a quarterback rating of 98. He hasn't been terrible. Yes, he's over the hill, but he's not been terrible. So could you do worse than find a bridge quarterback like this? Yes. Now,
Oh,
James
sure.
Winston, I don't even know what to say about that guy anymore.
Now I don't. I just quickly Googled it, not only the details exactly, but it says they signed Wilson to a $21 million deal. It's amazing that now sounds reasonable for a Jag, filler quarterback.
It's not too far out of the realm of reality for a veteran like that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Like 5 years ago, if you said you signed a quarterback to a $20 million contract, and I was like, who? And it's some guy who's like kind of on the back end of his career. That it's still a ton of money.
So if
But-
you want some
yeah.
Jameis Winston numbers, this is why there's no question about who's the starter.
Right.
He had a rating of 80.6 last year with Cleveland in 12 games, 7 starts, 57.4 for the Saints, 79 the year before. The high water mark of his career was 102 in
Mhm.
2021 with the Saints, and Russell Wilson's been way better than that at times. So there's no question here that Wilson's a starter, Winston's a backup. These guys are aiming for the future with
Right.
bringing in bridge quarterbacks here.
Right.
Yeah.
And Winston got a 2-year, $8 million deal. So that's no question when you look at those salaries. Who's what?
Less per
Uh,
year than Marcus Mariota.
Yeah. Yeah. But I would take Marcus Mariota over either of those guys just from a locker room culture standpoint at this
Well,
point.
and not even just that. I think Marcus Mariota is actually the perfect backup to Jane Daniels.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Plays the same
Absolutely.
runner, same body type, smart. I mean, the
Right.
guy is a perfect backup. They're really lucky to get him back. Because,
And-
like, I'd rather have Mariota than, like you said, to your point, than Jameis Winston.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do think also he's shown that he's a good teacher to a young quarterback last year. So,
Well, he's not a mess. Like Jameis
Right.
Winston's a child masquerade. Like, wasn't your line in the beginning? Man children.
yes.
Jameis Winston's one of these man children, whereas
Right.
Marcus Mariota is a legitimate, real human being.
Right. And Russell Wilson's just gotten weirder the older he's gotten, right? Like, I think we can all
Yes.
say that. Yeah. He's not Aaron Rodgers level weird, but like,
Oh,
On
not
the-
many
on the-
are.
yeah, on the scale, Aaron Rodgers is the 10. We all know that. Wilson and Winston are both like a 5.5. on the weird quarterback scale.
Wilson's got a little bit weirder as time has gone on, though.
Yeah, he started at a 3, and now he's up to a 5.5 in my mind.
Yeah, and whereas I think Rodgers is the archetype of weird.
Yes, like I said, he's the 10.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
you got to break some mold with that one.
Yeah. I mean, Brett Favre was the ultimate weird dude with the dick pic and all the other problems.
I would bet Favre it might get charged criminally. I mean, we did a story in It's Just Business about it, and I can't remember the details, but it was basically had to do with receiving federal grants in Mississippi and not doing what they were supposed to do with the federal grant money. And I don't know what this. It's been a while since we looked into it. But
he stole money that was earmarked for low-income families and used it for his daughter's school's volleyball team, like millions of dollars.
Yeah, so there are federal grants, federal housing grants,
right?
And that's what he got one of those, and the allegation is he misused it, and he knowingly misused it. That's the allegation.
Right.
I don't know what the status of the case is.
Right. I haven't heard about that in a while. I don't know
if there even is a case.
Yeah. It might have just disappeared because it's Mississippi, and we all know that's what happens in Mississippi.
Well, yes, but also, I mean, let's be honest here.
Yeah.
Brett Favre is a conservative guy, and the president, we have a conservative in the White House, and if nothing else about Washington, they tend to not go after their own. The liberals in Washington over the past 4 years were a parade of lawsuits and allegations against conservatives, and now we're going to probably see that on the other side. Not trying to get political, but then all of that means that Brett Favre may just kind of go by the wayside, is what I'm saying.
The only other big NFL news was Stephon Diggs went to the Patriots, which I guess not surprising. He was going to land somewhere. He's still a good, talented. He's not what he was. Yeah.
No. I mean, but the Patriots are a terrible team, and I'm not sure if they have a good quarterback.
But he's still a guy who's capable of putting up 750, 800 yards. He's a reliable, solid receiver.
If they can get someone who can get him the ball. I mean, who even is the Patriots quarterback now?
Drake May.
Drake May.
Yeah. Yeah. He can throw a deep ball. He can't do much else, but he can throw a deep ball. And that's what Stephon Diggs is there for. Just run. Just run free and catch the ball.
I don't know. I'm just not a Drake May fan. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, and look, you're not a huge Stephon Diggs fan either. Let's be honest. I
mean, he was a name, okay? I mean, he had his years. I'm not a Stephon Diggs fan. I'm just saying he's washed up. That's what I'm saying.
Sure. And then the last NFL news we wanted to hit. Thank goodness the NFL hasn't addressed things like the tush push or the automatic first down thing yet, but they have outlawed a new hand gesture celebration because that's what people worry about. When it comes to the game, the first thing that I'm concerned about when it comes to the quality of the game is the fact that they outlawed this gesture of people running their nose or rubbing their nose,
running their fingers across their mask below their nose,
below their nose.
Yes.
For first down.
And
I'm doing the gesture, not that helps people listening, but
well, it's a good thing because I've had to have several conversations with my grandson this past season, explaining why you shouldn't do that.
Right.
He actually took that into one of his play groups and almost got kicked out for doing it. So it was, it's about time they got rid of it.
Are you sure he wasn't picking his nose? He is a small child.
It might have been that, maybe.
I mean, look, it's taunting, okay? But there's a whole lot of other things they should be doing than that. I mean, who cares to me?
Right. I honestly,
taunting hasn't hurt anybody on the football field.
No. I honestly feel like we should suspend all taunting rules till they fix everything else.
I think we ought to taunt them until they get the rules fixed.
Right. Figure out what a catch is before you deal with taunting. You're muted.
Thank you. That is the most important thing. Stop with the insane rules and catches. Don't worry about the nose pick rule or whatever it is. Worry about a catch.
We're going to call it the nose pick rule instead of the running your finger under the nose.
It's more fun, the nose pick rule.
Just burn the current rule book and start from scratch and just write these and just write them out. I mean, right now, because right now, for as much as I hate the refs half the time because of how horrible they can be, they
Mhm.
also have to deal with such a mess of a rule book anymore. Like what is a catch and whatnot. It's just I don't know. It's just so
Well,
convoluted with all these other amendments to this, amendment to that. Well, this is a catch if this happens, but if that
Mhm.
happens, it's not a catch. But then again, if this happens before that happens, that what wouldn't have been a catch is now a catch unless he gets one toe down over here.
could you please draw a
That's
Venn
big.
diagram of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
The problem with what you're saying, of course, is that much like the U.S. Constitution, if you try to replace it, it would be 8,000 pages long,
Oh, I
and
know.
that's
Right.
what the new rule book would be.
Right. Right. If you tried to replace it, it would be only made longer, even though we all agree it should be made shorter. I actually ran into something very similar at my old job, and I won't get into the details, but they were trying to simplify a one-page document and came up with a 20-page document.
There you go.
Yeah.
Exhibit A, kids.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yes, that's always what happens because you get people like Steve involved who are lawyers and they want to argue about the language and what the language means in the language.
But you have to have some realm of reality applied to this thing too.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Uh
Yeah.
so, good news guys. The pick your nose penalty gone. The ball spin is gone. Uh we couldn't just have said, "All right, stop humping the goalpost and we're good." Stop pretending you're pooping out the ball and we're good. Like we could have
Yeah,
just
right.
left it at those two and everything else is fine.
No, we got to go to the nose pick rule.
Yep. No nose picking on the field. Sorry, Brett Favre. I know that was your favorite thing. All right, guys. Somehow we made it to an hour, despite the fact that we only had really 2 topics to go.
And they weren't that exciting. They weren't that exciting either.
No, it's the doldrums until the draft, and it always gets tricky in this time of the year. Go watch baseball. That's my advice to people. Watch people play some baseball.
The world champion Dodgers season's about to start, and that's what's important.
Yeah, opening day for most teams is if you're listening on Thursday today. I think most teams opening day is today.
The Dodgers actually started a week ago with
Oh,
the
right,
Japanese series.
Japan. Yeah, that
Yeah.
weird thing. Which then they stop for a week or something.
Well, you
that was
can't
so
exactly fly people for 14 hours and fly them back and then have them play a baseball game the next day.
jet lagged.
Yeah,
Slightly tripping on like the lack of sleep.
right.
Yeah.
That make
Yeah.
for an interesting game, no?
Yeah. I want one game where every player's on ayahuasca. That's what I want. We'll call it the Aaron Rodgers game.
I would do. Steve does not endorse Alex's suggestion.
It would be a 0-0 shutout for a long time till people sobered up.
That is true.
All right, guys. We will talk to you all next week. Later.
Later.